Hello, my beloveds, to Nine's Corner. There is so much happening on the news right now that we have to deal with, but if you will indulge me, I would love to start it off by saying a prayer for Ukraine, for all the soldiers, for all the people, for all the mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, babies, children, just everybody who's going to be affected by this. I think we need to just come together for a few moments in prayer. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there is doubt, true faith in you. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is despair in life, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light, and where there's sadness, ever joy. O Master, grant that I may never seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. It is pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in giving to all men that we receive, and in dying that we are born to eternal life. O Master, grant that I may never seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there's despair in life, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light. And where there's sadness, ever joy. Okay, so we're going to get into a reading about Ukraine. I think we need to hit a number of different topics. So instead of just going into this big rant in the beginning, let's just take it section by section. We have Russia, who, for all intents and purposes, has always considered Ukraine part of Russia. And barring that, they're like, we want you to be a quiet ally of ours, and let's make a deal that benefits Russia to the halt, to the most, to the max, and that makes you nothing. And Ukraine, through the years, have tried to fight for their sovereignty. There's been upsets and battles, and there's sections that have been removed where there was wars that removed all the Jewish people and removed all the Ukrainian people from a certain section so that they could put Russian speaking. And I mean, if you go through the history, it's almost too much to take in. But they're literally fighting now about the same things that they fought about back then, being Crimea. That was a big deal back in the 17th century. It's a case of, for Russia, and Mother Russia used to be a huge entity, Crimea is part of the Black Sea. The Black Sea is a transport station. It gives you the ability to have Navy ships. It gives you the ability to have a Navy. Russia wants that. So they wanted the Black Sea. They don't want their neighbor to have NATO on their side. And like the part that's hard is because, you've got Ukraine who, if you watch the interview with the Ukrainian president, he was like, look, we asked to become part of NATO. And instead of saying, sure, come on in, or hey, let's really, do something about it, it was, yes, we agree with you. Now we're going to put you on a possible list that could get into our private club. And then nothing was done. This is according to the president. So then you're thinking, okay, so Russia, Putin specifically, does not want for NATO to be on their border, because if NATO's on the border, then they can watch everything that's happening, even more so than what they are now. So, and then, on top of the history, because Putin, has all his life wanted to be, the bringer together of the USSR, to make it its superpower. So there's a number of things that Putin wants on top of he wants Ukraine to demilitarize. So, it's like the things that he's asking for are impossible because you're giving up all your power. But these are the things that he wants. So then we look at, okay, what have we in the West done? What have we done to say, hey, let's push back on this? So we looked at sanctions. And Putin has come out and said, you know what, I've talked to my oligarchs. We're not worried about these sanctions. When back in 2014-15, when they took Crimea, they had sanctions, they kind of took it in stride and went on, but they still got Crimea. And like, if you actually look at some of the sanctions, it's kind of questionable, okay? So you have to think, Russia is the third highest exporter of natural gas and oil, specifically to Europe and to parts of Asia. So you've got the UK president saying, you know what, we're going to close down that pipeline, that Nord Stream 2. That's going to be one of the sanctions. But then they already have a pipeline, and Russia is putting oil and our natural gas through that. And the prices are going up, and Russia kind of controls the heat and things that are over a certain portion of Europe and Asia, right? And then you got to think the pipelines are from Crimea through Ukraine. Like, this could become something so huge. It's almost, it's too much to take in. It's too much to take in. You got to look at, okay, first, we're going to look at Putin, who's nearly 70, he's either 69 or 70. Now, there has been some talk that, he goes from 50 to 52, depending on, what site you're looking at, and that nobody really technically knows his real age and that kind of a thing. But I was doing a lot of research on him, and, he's got 2 to 3 daughters, and it was quite interesting. And his ex-wife says he's like a puppy about, he's like a soft bear about his children and all this kind of stuff. The complications of it all. So it started off with Putin looking at Belarus and Western Ukraine and having, supporting the rebels there. But I mean, they were putting Belarusa, am I saying that wrong? Belarusa. Anyway, forgive me, but you know what I mean. That on the borders there, the Russians were putting up even like field hospitals and stuff, like preparing for all this. So I just like to look at Putin for a couple of things. I know I'm going from one thing to the other. It's just that it's a complicated story. And okay, I'd like to look at Putin's health. I'd like to look at Putin's takeover of Ukraine, what's going to be the result of that. And that's the two things I really want to come out now in this reading. And then we'll look at, has Trump given Putin any kind of information or anything that can harm the U.S. coming up, that Russia could say, oh, you want to be affected? Well, here you go. I'm going to affect something because Trump already gave him information. And I mean, when you're talking about nuclear war and stuff, like, this is scary. And it's so, but we're not going to live in the fear of it. We're going to look at each thing individually. So let's look at Putin and what is going to be the result of Russia's invasion on Ukraine. Then we'll look at Ukraine and so on and so forth. So Putin, what is going to be the result? Eight of Wands, quick movement, a lot of moving pieces, doing it quickly, trying to do it with shock. Covering it. Unfortunately, you're going to see a lot of loss. I can't help but feel like somehow, some way, okay, you know what? I'm just going to leave it alone until we get the full reading. We'll see. So we've got a lot of quick movement, and then we have regret. We have the harm, the people that it's going to harm, the things that it's going to harm. But yet, Ukraine persists. They want to continue even through. Here's Putin. He's stealing Ukraine. He's going for it. Underneath this, he's just going for it. In the past, there was temperance. In the past, there was communication. I truly believe that, Putin's, one, he's 70, so he's starting to get older. He's starting to, be in a position where he's got less to lose. So the older he gets, maybe the crazier he's going to get, because diplomacy worked in the past. But I think he really felt NATO and them breathing down his neck. He did not want NATO to be NATO, or for Ukraine to be part of NATO. So he I think age and everything else has stopped him from going from diplomacy to actually going and doing something. On top of it, we've got the Four of Swords. They are thinking this is going to be a quick fight, that they're going to give in easily enough. For some reason, in Russia's mind, they're stealing it, and I don't know if 4 is 4 weeks, 4 months, but it's like they're thinking this is a done deal fairly quickly. The King of Wands, here's Putin. He has ability. He has, he has strength over so much, because, Germany is the 3rd highest exporter of natural gas that goes to Europe and Asia. I mean, there's sanctions and you can do things, but, it's one thing to say we're going to halt the pipeline, but you're still getting all your oil and gas through the first pipeline. So I feel as though Putin knows that he has people over a barrel, that he's experienced the sanctions back during Obama's time. And he's already approached, the oligarchs to say, hey, this is what's going to happen. And it's like he's learned from history what he needs to do. There's no best outcome for this. I think they already know the outcome. I think Putin knows the outcome. He knows that there's going to be people harmed. He knows that he has put down communications that are impossible for people to be able to do, or he's put down, things that he wants, like no NATO, no this. So he is really put in a position, he feels, now this is from Putin's point of view, that he was given no choice. He had to. And weirdly enough, the people around, the outsiders, are almost like, happy for the distraction, or I don't know why, but it's like benefits. This benefits others, because this is my others card, how it affects others. And this is, in some way, it benefits. There's some kind. Okay, prior to, I was like, God, it just feels like not only was this pre-planned by Putin, there was prior knowledge and everybody kind of knew what their part was to play. Information, again, looking like a quick quick transition from saying, okay, this is what needs to be done, and then being able to say, look, here it is. This is what this is what they're hoping for, that Putin will be pushed the same way, in the sense of, okay, you know what, we're going to get those sanctions and stuff, but he's hoping that because they've already got this pre-planned, and I'm just going to say it, I do think that Trump has something to do with this. I think that Trump gave Putin some kind of information that's prior to this. I think that the Temperance card also says about not just communications, but information. So I think somehow I'm worried by the way the cards are, by the way that Putin looks very confident in these cards, that there may be distractions he'll try to do, whether that be in other countries or, you know, it'd be like, does he know something from Trump that he can go, okay, let's affect this grid or affect this communication, so that the U.S. has to deal with their own problem? Do you know what I mean? There's something really sinister here about it, because it's so quick and he seems so confident about it. I'm surprised at all the confidence in the cards. Strength. I mean, you can't get more confident than that. For Putin's reading, he thinks that he will be able to get Ukraine and get it with strength and get it fairly easily. That is what's happening with Putin. Oh my. So let's look at the Ukrainian people, because I was watching a new newscast, and they were saying that, you know, the Ukrainian people aren't moving. They are united. They want to stay as Ukrainian. I mean, I can appreciate it. I would stand up for where I live. I would never just, you know, I'd have to say, okay, well, I'll have to fight it, because they have been doing this for years and years and years and years, and they're tired. They just want to have their own, you know, be their own sovereign nation. They just want to be their own, but they share a border with Russia, and Russia's not going to be willing to just give in. So, like, what happens now? You know, if fighting happens Ukraine, from the feeling I get from the Putin reading, it seems like, and especially with the strength card, it feels like Putin's health right now is still strong. I worry that the strength card could be an indication of him trying to take over somebody or something. So, you know, hearing about an assassination of some sort, that's a possibility. So let's look at Ukraine. I mean, the pipelines go through Ukraine. Their military is not able to stand up to Russia's military. And no matter if we put sanctions on them or not, are we willing to put feet to the ground? Are we willing to go nuclear over this situation? Like, what's the Western feeling? And I mean, you look at Germany and Asia, like we already talked about, they're dependent on Russia. Enemy, okay. I'm just going to put it all out there. How long have we been talking and saying how China and Russia are getting really close? And even in, like, I've been saying this on my channel for like years. Literally, you go back and find me saying about it. And recently I've seen it in the news where they're showing, you know, China and Russia getting buddy-buddy. And it's like, hello, ding, ding, ding. Is anybody noticing this? Because imagine if Putin is going into this and he's like, don't worry, my oligarchs. We have China. China's going to help us. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, oh my God. So let's just look at Ukraine. What's going to happen with the people of Ukraine? We've already got a migration issue started. They're moving to Belarus. I'm sorry if I'm saying that name wrong. I'm doing my best. Doing my best. So let's look at Ukraine. What's going to happen with Ukraine? God bless you, people. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. Unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of fighting. It's happening. Okay. What's going against it is the Knight of Pentacles, a slow but steady offer that's going to be coming through. We're just going to have to go with the cards to see, is this going to line up with Putin's cards? Temperance is underneath it. So Ukraine is really just, you know, they want to have their own country, but they don't want to harm their people. They don't want war to harm them. And they know what's happening. They know what's doing, but they want peace. They truly want peace. They want to be Ukraine, but they want peace. In the past, we have the Emperor. This is Russia. For all their history, Russia, you know, being part of it, pushing it, killing people, you know, yes, they have a common history, they have common language, common food, but Ukraine is its own entity. Russia is its own entity. Russia wants Ukraine for the Black Sea. It wants Ukraine for strategic reasons to not have NATO. But this want has gone back in history. And this is history, Russia's thumb on Ukraine, and this narrative that has been forever going. This is not a new story that's happening in Ukraine. This is the continuing story that happens in Ukraine. The High Priestess, on top of it, I am telling you, my belief is that there was a lot of people that knew what was happening before it was happening. It was already kind of understood that they had to, it's like being made aware of something, knowing that it's going to happen, and having to save face by saying this, that, and the other thing, but knowing that it's not going to change anything. The world coming to completion quickly. The world looking at Ukraine, the world looking to see what's happening in Ukraine. Russia making an offer to stop the fighting in Ukraine. But the world is dealing with it. The world wants to be part of this. The world is watching. Okay. The Ukrainian people are hoping their greatest outcome for them, what they are hoping is going to be possible, is that they will triumph, that they will be able to stay their own entity, that, you know, get into NATO. I mean, they are really hoping that the past is Russia's imprint on them, and that they're fighting for their future, and that the world is going to support them. That's what Ukraine is looking at. The world looking in, the players looking in, Russia, name them off. They're looking at a transformation. This transformation affects the world. I mean, you know, a war in Crimea, a war in Ukraine, Russia taking over Ukraine is going to cause a lot of transformation, a lot of death, a lot of instability. And this is like, it affects so much. You're talking about economies, and this affects economies around the world. You're talking about my worry, okay, just my worry is that there's something on a world stage that Putin knows that's going to make it impossible for us to be able to stop what's happening. We're seeing this as, well, that's it. It's gone to Putin. But it's almost like there's a transformation happening. Is this like, are we going to be giving in and we just kind of go? Or is this like, oh my God, we're going to start something on this? Justice, fairness will prevail. This is in the hopes and fears that what is right, Ukraine is praying that what is right for them, what is fair to them is what's going to happen. They're praying that the world is going to represent and be there. There's something that's unknown. I just feel like there's a plan, or there was something that was known that's not being privy to us, but it was privy to the people that are in power here. So for Ukraine is going to have to defend itself. Ukraine is, God bless you. This is not going to be tied up with a tidy bow. I think that you're going to be fighting Russia, trying to fight off Russia, and that this is your outcome, that you'll end up fighting for yourselves yet again. So giving me the feeling that, this is going to be a quick, a swift, quick, bang, and then rebuild. And Ukraine's going to have to fight for themselves. I'm just, yeah. This is a really hard reading. So if this is not something that you feel, okay about, if this is causing you any kind of ill feeling, because I know it makes me feel, I'm literally shaking. I'm so scared. That's all I can say. I'm literally shaking. So let's look at Trump and Putin. Did Trump give Putin information that Putin will use during this time? Because he's awful confident. In that first reading of Putin, I really expected some, like the tower to come out or something. But his cards are confident. Did Trump tell Putin anything? Oh my God, guys. Hello. Information overload. Yes, Trump was talking a good talk. Trump was, spewing it out. He had verbal diarrhea. Yes, he was saying, and do you see the piece on top of that? The bird of peace on top of all the information. So all the information that he gave Putin was to disturb our peace. He's so, on the bigger scale of Ukraine, they're doing it strategically, but they want to hurt the democracies around the world. Imagine if you're a neighbor or you're Poland, Poland's thinking, am I going to be next? Or, scary. So yes. Oh my goodness gracious. Here's the lovers, here's Putin and Trump coming together. He gave him information that will be used to cause problems in the future. 100%, guys, 100%. Holy moly. Here's the fool, here's Trump, just, not realizing that what he's saying could destroy U.S., could destroy democracy, could cause all these fights and cause all this world harm during this time of a pandemic and everything else when we're all weak. In the past, Trump and Putin, in the past, America and Russia were just on totally different waves of understanding each other. They were just different people. And now in America, you have right wings like Tucker and them talking up Putin, talking up Russia. When had this been in the past, if you were looking at 30 years ago, Russia would have been the boogeyman to America. So there's this weird kind of being blinded to the past. this weird kind of, you know, knowing what happened in the past, but turning a blind eye to it because it doesn't serve what you're looking for in the future. On top of it is the Chariot. Which way are we going to go? What's going to prevail? Because he's trying to control two Sphinx, trying to go in different direction, but you have to be the one that's in control. So above this all is who's going to be in control? Who's going to take control? Is somebody going to actually do something that will take control? And here we're talking about Trump giving control to Putin. But what is Putin going to do with that? Is there something coming here? King of Swords. God, I feel sick. Putin is going to lash out. He feels the authority to do it. He feels the confidence in doing it. He has information. We pull the King of Swords. Swords is your thoughts and info and communications. And he has it. Trying to cause a weakening of democracy around the world. Trying to cause chaos. Trying to make everybody feel weak. This is the disturbance that they're trying to cause. The people around, they're strategically trying to deal with things, but there's a lot of dark money underneath all of this. There's something weird about this. It's almost like there's a group that are happy that this has happened, that they want this to happen as a destruction, but it's like there's planning. There's some kind of pre-planning in this. I wish I was smarter to know more so I could actually, but I'm just going by the vibes of the cards, so. Okay, so look. We're looking at the information that Trump gave him. Trump gave Putin, Russia, Mother Russia, so much information, and it's things that he's going to use now and in the future. He has information. Okay. I really feel that now through 3 readings, that Putin is going to, it's like it's going to happen quick, it's going to be a big, and then it's like, okay, let's just go on to calmer waters. I just feel like this is going to be something quick. And I do feel like Trump gave him information, power, because information is power. And somehow Putin's able to invade, do it, get it over with, and then we're all just kind of moving on from that point. Okay. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at the Western world. How is the Western world going to be affected? Because if we get war cards, then we'll know, okay, this is going to become bigger, but let's see. I got to relax because I'm just like, I can feel myself being, and I would like to look into China and Russia. Let's look into China and Russia first, and then we'll look at Western world. I just want to see if their closeness has caused Russia to have confidence that China would help out just in cases, you know what I'm saying? Because we certainly did not learn our lesson that we should not be reliant on China. We haven't done anything to change that part. Okay, let's just look. Putin? Ooh, China. Darn it all. Putin. Like I said, he's at the end of his game. He knows that he's running out of time. He knows that he's going to have a lot of disdain and fighting and everything else for him to go after Ukraine. But here we have China. And China's going to support because China considers Russia less than, and but they see Russia as an ally that they can control, especially after Putin is no more. That's so interesting. Okay. Let's look at let's look at us, the Western world. How are our sanctions? How is what's happening in Ukraine going to affect us? Is it going to affect our economy? I mean, oil prices, gas prices, things of that nature. How are we, what's the effect on us? What are we thinking? What are we feeling? What's going to be our place in it? Because I don't know about you. I don't want my boys going out to any war for any reason. I don't want any war. I just don't want it. This is crazy. This is 2022. We should be intelligent enough to be able to come to the table and have our differences and realize that just because you think you're right doesn't make me wrong, and kind of go from a place of, well, I suppose that's expecting a lot, isn't it? So let's look at the Western effect, how Western countries are going to be affected by Ukraine and the war with Russia. And I mean, you know, you got to look at, you know what, I'm going to look at Asia and Asia and Europe separately, just because they're more directly affected with the gas and stuff, just to see. Okay, so how's the Western world being affected? Okay. The sun. So we are knowledgeable about it. We're going to be part of it. We are going to have our say on it. We're going to shine a light on what's happening. What's going against it is the Ten of Cups. What's going against it is the disorder, the pandemic, the infighting, like our own issues that are happening within our own countries are ill affecting us. Our needs to take care of what's happening at home is going against our ability to shine the light, because we are dealing with world, because we are becoming all like one world. But what's going against the Western push to Russia and what's happening in Ukraine is what's happening within their own world, within their own, what's affecting. And this also is affecting Ukrainian family, friends, children. Why? Underneath it all, it's like we're trying to go and do what we need to do to a minimum to get away from a bad problem. But it's not, we're taking the problems with us. We're not really changing anything. It's sort of, there's something just not right. So here we have, in the past, prior to, you know, I'm thinking Crimea and stuff like that, there was this push to want to say, look, Ukraine is a democratic society. Ukraine has the right to become part of NATO. There was a want to push back on Russia. They didn't want them getting Crimea. And now we're seeing a repeat. We're seeing the same thing happening again, where Russia has now said, okay, in the past we took Crimea, we took the sanctions, we've got an idea of what we're going to look at. And this is also information coming out. So Biden did give the information that based on what they did, we'll do this, which kind of gave Russia and the international news world, you know, like, oh my God, he said this. And, you know, now Russia felt like, we're going to do it. Because they kind of felt like they know what sanctions they're going to bring. So there's just so many layers of this. So many layers. Okay, so on top of it, we are going to be defending ourselves. Okay, we should continue with the reading, but I'm afraid that, I'm worried that through the reading, that there's going to be something that's happening at our doorstep, at home, that's going to need our attention. Something is off. Knight of Wands, we're going to be there. We're looking back. We're going to put the sanctions. We're going to put a push. But this is not a sword. This is a wand. This is more doing things in the name of doing it rather than actually cutting them off, cutting their sources, hurting them. You know, wanting to come to temperance, wanting to come to, like, say, for Russia, they want to go back to the times when Ukraine was part of Russia. Russia wants Ukraine to be the baby brother, the baby sister, that just, you be our ally, you just stay quiet and let us do as we want to do. Let's just keep the past. And Russia keeps bringing up the past, that Russia was part of it or took. But if you actually look at the past, Ukraine has always tried to be its own nation, but its own country. But Russia has, you know, gone over it 1,000 times and destroyed and fought and pushed back. So there's a lot of shared value, shared history, shared, obvious space. You know, you've got a border together. So there's a vested interest in coming together in peace. But it's like they're hoping for a more balanced way, a more tempered way for discussions or for this to turn out. So I feel like America, the Western, Canada, Australia, we're all going to be looking at ways to communicate. That's still going to be our number one thing going forward. The Hermit. So the international group doesn't, it's almost like the Western world doesn't know, or I guess the average Joe like us doesn't really understand what's happening here. So although there's a light being shown on what's happening here and what's happening with Russia, it's like there's still a lot of people that are not aware of the situation. You know, you've got some people that are very aware and now they're very frightened. But then you've got it's like, again, a lack of information. And then Russia doing this on a quick scale, because it's like before they even get to shine a light on what's going on, it's going to be something that's going to happen quick. There's just a real, especially with wands and stuff, there's this quick movement in all of this. There's going to be sadness, regret. They're worried about loss. They're worried about losing people. They're worried about the effect on Ukraine, the effect on migration, the effect on the world economy. But they know they have to stand up, that there's a reason and a purpose and a history in standing up to this. But the Western, group are worried about, and rightfully so, should be worried about the ill effect on people, what people will lose, the average person will lose. Okay, the outcome is the Six of Wands. So I really don't feel like there's this panic of nuclear war. There's going to be talk, there's going to be fear, there's going to be all that stuff. But I mean, you've been with me doing these readings now, and we don't see horrific cards. I mean, even when you look at, I don't have it here, but we had the Five of Wands, which shows fighting. That's not sword fighting. That's meaning something quick and over quick. Doesn't mean that it's not dreadful. Doesn't mean that it's not horrific. It just means that it's not as harsh as the swords. And my cards, although not great, you're not seeing Third World War here. And I feel like the Western world will be okay. You know, I just don't see us going into some kind, you know, yes, the sanctions, yes, some of the symbolic things will be done. And of course, it'll always cause pain. But I think they will walk a fine line and keep the peace, to be honest with you. So, okay. Let's just have a quick look at the Russia's possible effect on Europe and Asian countries because of the oil. Will that be affected by this war in Ukraine? Wheel of Fortune. Oh my. Three of Swords. I thought, okay, Russia got the Wheel of Fortune, destiny. I got Europe and Asia getting the Three of Swords. So I think there is going to be, some heartache brought to those who live there when it comes to Russia and Russia controlling, of course, controlling. They're like, you know what? Because of the quick movement of what Russia has done, in the short term, it's going to hurt. Something is going to happen with a pipeline or, you know, the prices and whatnot. Short term, you know, 6 to 8 months, it's going to hurt. Russia's like, I come in, I get, I go. Fighting. So the Nine of Pentacles. They will there will be pushback to Russia, and that will make it so that they will realign and get their oil situation straightened out. It will be it will be through some, you know, fighting with Russia, some communications which are going to be really off-centered and difficult because Russia's not going to make it easy, but they will eventually be able to deal with this situation. And this could even be, like, I mean, this is futuristic, okay? This could even mean, with the bird there, that maybe they'll say, you know what, we've been burnt by Russia. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. No, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So maybe they're going to figure out that in the future, they need to get their own source, get away from the reliance on Russia. Interesting. But right now, there's, you know, unfortunately, Russia has the upper hand right now. There will be things that'll happen that will, you know, this is not going to be a forever situation. But we got to learn, like, we have to start learning to do for ourselves. We got to start realizing that the more we become a world network, that we still have to take care of each other individually. Like, we can't be so self-reliant on other countries. So I think there's this continuous lesson that we're not learning. You know, that there's got to be, you know, we're fighting. to get over the fighting, you got to get to the crux of what you're fighting over, you know? So we, as a world, need to start working together in peace, yes. But we also have to start putting the rules and regulations on a world stage, but that also means taking care of ourselves. Integrating ourselves with the world, but that also means right there, you don't look out to watch your ships come in until you've built the foundation to which to have their arrival. Each country needs to have its own source of independence before they start looking out and sharing with others. I truly believe that part of the big reset is going to be that letting go of the old structure of ways used to be. And part of integrating us as a world society is all of us becoming equal. And there's the planning, there's the learning curve of it. So yes, in the future, this will become something that we'll figure out. There's going to be planning. We have to learn from it. Wow. That was a very interesting read. I enjoyed that. I hope you did too. I know the subject matter is kind of scary and harsh, and it's happening now. So, you know, we're all kind of holding our breath and watching the news and seeing what's happening. But so that'll be our reading for today. I'm sorry for the heavy subject matter, but it's important. And you know what? Leave your comments below. We're all learning. We're all just, you know, coming to the table with whatever information or whatever we know. So please feel free to like, subscribe, share, but definitely leave the comments and let me know what you think and what we should read on going forward. If there's some question that you'd like for me to read on that I didn't look at in this little reading that we did, just let me know. And so, as always, my darling people, I have our unity candle lit for each and every one of us. I swear to God, I'm like so shaky. I don't know what's wrong with me. I've been shaky this whole reading, so all right. As always, take care of yourselves and we'll chat soon. Cheerio. Take care.